I am your Auntie Elaine, a walk with a cane, I have chronic pain. I am an aromantic, ADD frantic, partial deaf antics. I'm just your liberal geriatric millennial gal. Welcome, it's your Auntie Elaine. I'm happy to see you all, my nieces and nephews and nibblings out there. I hope you've been having a fabulous day. Today I wanted to give you a little bit of a lecture on essential YouTubers. Which, now that I say it out loud, does definitely sound a little like egomaniacal, but I'm telling you, these YouTube channels that I'm going to touch on, I find very enriching for a variety of ways, which I will elaborate on further. And I really think that if you're going to spend much time on YouTube, you should be consuming some of this content at least, because a lot of these creators are just brilliant in any number of ways. So before we kind of get into the specific YouTube channels that I'd like to discuss, I did want to mention that a lot of the creators that I like on this list are also on a streaming service called Nebula. They often, if you watch these channels, they'll be offering some sort of like discount where you get Curiosity Stream and Nebula. I definitely recommend it. I mean, I'm not being sponsored by anybody or anything, but it's dang cheap. And if you like documentaries of any sort, it's really nice to have the library on Curiosity Stream and all the extra content from a lot of these great creators on Nebula. So having that definitely enhances my appreciation of the channels that are on Nebula. So I figured I'd give that a mention. The way that I've kind of broken this up is by different types, different categories, because there's a lot of different types of channels that are kind of similar, but I want to mention them all. Because I am like that when you get somebody with ADD and a chance to make a list. It's got to be this and then, oh, parentheses, that. And we'll also subcategory that it gets a little complicated in our mind. You should see my little notebook here and the outlines, mixed up, created things that I worked on trying to come up with this. But what I've settled on are my top 10 categories of YouTube channels that have different essential creators within. So, of course, it's got to be an extra layer of complicated because, you know, ADD. So the first category I want to talk about, I'm actually only going to provide one example because I think it's so emblematic of how YouTube really has evolved over time, and how YouTube has the ability to cause people to evolve over time. And so the first channel that I want to talk about is a channel called How to Cook That, which sounds like, you know, it's just cutesy little recipes and stuff about baking and stuff, and there is that content, and it is great. But the reason I wanted to talk about this channel in particular and its creator, Ann Reardon, is she also has a just absolutely fascinating series of debunking videos. You can like look through the series and you can see how it's evolved from, it started out kind of like debunking cooking videos, and it's kind of moved up in intensity into the point where she's, you know, most recently been debunking things that are like lethally dangerous. And so it's kind of escalated is what I'm saying. But along the way, one of the things that she learned about and in turn taught us about, her viewers, were content farms and how they create content of extremely questionable value quickly and just put out tons and tons and tons of it and copy off of real creators and copy off of each other and spread a lot of harmful misinformation. And before her series really educated me on that, I did used to watch some of those content farm videos, not really knowing what I was supporting and why it was detrimental to the YouTube community. And after learning from her, it's helped me be able to figure out what what channels are content farms and which are, actual real independent creators, and help me be able to pick who to support with my time, my clicks, my engagement a lot more thoughtfully. So that's why I wanted to put her right up front and talk about her, because if you don't hear anything else, definitely that series, you don't have to watch all of them, but watch a few of those, and trust me, it's gonna like blow your mind if you don't know about these content farms already. It's wild. And then I think that talking about Ann Reed and her channel kind of dovetails well into my first real category here, which is people who use pop culture analysis to make broader points about society or philosophy or anything really in general. And there's a really great culture of that on YouTube. This is by far the category with the most people that I'd like to touch on, because there's just a lot of really wonderful creators out there that I've come across that, take mostly movies, but TV shows and books and other things, and pull them apart and help you look at them another way, and also help you see the moral in a new way, and help you see yourself in a new way, help you see society in a new way. It's really, like I said, it's very enriching. I think it's very valuable. And so obviously, I know that not everybody's gonna want to watch all of these creators, but I want to give a list of some of the ones I think are really good, and that, if you think that their particular focus is something that sounds appealing, you might want to check them out. So the very first person that I wanted to mention is Lindsey Ellis. Now, she's actually retired off of YouTube. She's not actively making videos anymore, but much of her catalog is still available on her channel. And I don't know how long that's going to be the case. It is true that she's taken content off of the web after it's been posted previously. And so I would really hope that a lot of these videos get to stay on, because some of them are just kind of fun. The Why of Cats is a pretty fun video that she has. But some have been, really influential, not just on me, but other creators. I've heard quite a lot of other creators cite things like her deconstruction of the backlash against Stephanie Meyer and whether it was valid at the time, or whether it was based in something that was valid at the time. And I've heard, other people reference her, and I definitely found her take on Death of the Author and J.K. Rowling to be incredibly influential. So I feel like she is sort of the epitome of when you can take media criticism and kind of wrap it up with philosophy and politics and current events and pop culture, and just make everything kind of gel into this very interesting, nuanced point that makes you think. You may not agree with everything that she says, but I think that she makes points that make you want to think about it more, or look into it more, or reevaluate. And I just think that there's a lot of value in that, and that's why I wanted to call her out specifically. And so in addition to Lindsey, there's some really wonderful creators in this category that I feel bear mentioning, like Sarah Zed, who definitely has a lot more focus on internet culture as opposed to pop culture made from commercial things. Like, she has some pretty interesting things about shipping and cons and stuff that I kind of am a little too old for the peak of that being in my culture. So it's really interesting for me to watch it sort of like as an archaeologist, uncovering a culture that I kind of vaguely understand. And the same thing is, I believe she goes by Izzzyzzz. I'm not certain because there's just an awful lot of Z's in that username, but she almost exclusively covers fan culture, and she tells you about some pretty wild stuff. So, you know, it's not always as deep with her, but I find, again, I kind of watch it with a like, ooh, this interesting culture of people who are younger than me. This is what they did? Oh, interesting. Another movie analysis YouTube channel that I wanted to mention is coldcrashpictures, which has a pretty nice catalog in general, but specifically I wanted to call out their duology about Gone with the Wind, which I felt was extremely comprehensive. And if you ever wanted to have an incredibly in-depth discussion of that movie and its cultural impact, that's a wonderful way to spend a little time and really get a chance to see things from a new perspective. Another YouTuber who blends both movies and literature together in a pretty fascinating way is Dominic Noble, who makes a lot of videos about whether or not a movie or TV show is an accurate adaptation of its source material, generally books. There's also book reviews and other content on his channel, but that's primarily what I would say he's known for. And again, not necessarily as in-depth, like philosophically, but quite entertaining and occasionally thought-provoking. So definitely worth a watch there. And of course, for the sci-fi nerds, there's Jessie Gender, who is like totally into Star Trek, which is not necessarily my thing, but she covers other types of nerdy pop culture and also covers a lot of very interesting current events issues and has a pretty interesting insight into it. So I definitely recommend her as well. I also couldn't go through this section without mentioning Matt Baume, which I really think that his channel has taught me more about contextualizing pop culture of the past through a queer lens. And it's been very interesting to kind of see how we've moved forward in society and then backslid, and pop culture kind of bears that out. And it's interesting to see his take on things, and also he's quite an interesting and funny presenter, so he's worth checking out for sure. Now there's a few others I'm going to flash up here that I just don't have the time to get into, but all of them are great. I'm going to have all of the links to all the channels below because I think that they're amazing. So I'll make sure to put a little blurb with the links for these ones just to kind of give you an idea of what their specialty is. Now, my last channel in this category that I wanted to cover in depth is one I think that is just absolutely incredible, and it's called Be Kind Rewind. Now, on this channel, it kind of started out to be a little bit formulaic, and it was kind of talking about the history of classic actresses. I mean, I don't know why that would be very interesting to me. And Oscar races. And so it would have sort of the backstory, the context for the win and for the losses of the other people who were nominated. And she's really branched out to also talk about the history of misogyny and sex abuse and racism, yellowface. You know, it's really been very interesting to see how that channel has evolved and become so informative. And I've learned so much about the women that I've had up on my wall for years that I didn't know from her. So I definitely recommend all of these channels if they sound like they might be of a specialty that would be useful to you, or just in general. I mean, they're all really entertaining and I think generally very well researched, which is, I think, hard to find sometimes on the internet. The next category that I would like to talk about are the channels that focus around philosophy and politics. I lump those together because I think there is a significant overlap between political philosophy and just philosophy. And so I think that it would be difficult sometimes to categorize a channel as being strictly political or strictly philosophical, because it's a blurry line, you know. It's like trying to take a egg out of the cake after it's baked, you know. And to start out, if you're going to talk about philosophy and YouTube, then you're probably going to start with philosophy too. So I'd like to tell you the story of how I first experienced philosophy tube. The first philosophy tube that I ever watched was this one. Now, if you know anything about the channel, this video is a little bit atypical. Prior to this video coming out, the thumbnails on the channel looked like this, and afterward they looked like this. Yeah, the video that I watched was literally the video where the very public YouTuber came out as a transgender woman. And so yeah, it's kind of weird for me to watch her back catalog in that context, but she has so many wonderful videos that she's kept up from her pre-transition days that are really worth a watch. And her stuff that she's put out post-transition, I mean, the production values, girl, she is an actress. Anyway, also, if we want to talk about transgender YouTubers who talk about politics and philosophy, well, we might as well mention old Natalie Wynn, aka ContraPoints. She's fabulous. I love her videos. I don't care what the topic is. I just watch it when I'm in the mood. You have to be in the mood for a think. But when you are, put on one of those videos and she will take you somewhere and you will see things in a whole new light. And I love that about her. Also in this category is my weird, like, security blanket video guy, which is hbomberguy. I don't know why, but certain content of his is like what I put on when I'm having trouble focusing and I'm bored and I want something that's just gonna like keep me entertained and engaged. But if I kind of fade in and out, that's fine. I know where it's going and I know where it's been already. And that would be these two videos specifically. Most of hbomberguy's content is gamer related, so it doesn't necessarily speak to me, but his videos on politics definitely do. And, you know, even the video game ones are pretty interesting to watch to a certain extent, even if you don't know anything about the content. So there's quite a few others that fit this category. But I only have so much memory on this device, so I can't talk forever about all of them, and so I will just include links in the description. Also, sort of a corollary to this would be the Children of the Daily Show, is how I kind of think of them. You know, the current Daily Show, Stephen Colbert's show, even to a certain extent, Seth Meyers, the sort of style that he used in Saturday Night Live and currently in his show definitely has that sort of like fake newsy and quality to it. And so I definitely appreciate a lot of these different men, because we don't have Sam Bee anymore because she got canceled. Sorry, not better. I would say the best of the lot is John Oliver. And I think that that's sort of an unfair thing to say, because John Oliver has to put out one episode a week and gets a pretty nice amount of weeks off his vacation. and has a pretty good amount of staff and funding and is able to come up with these very meticulously researched and entertaining pieces. And you can watch the in-depth part on YouTube. They don't upload the full show to YouTube, so you can't watch it legally on YouTube. But if you just watch nothing more than the main stories that they post after every episode, you definitely are better off, I have to say. So the next category that I would like to discuss are professionals. In this case, primarily lawyers, but also mortician is a good example, that use their YouTube platform to give insight into their profession and also help contextualize pop culture and the news with the information they know because of their special education. So the best of this would be Legal Eagle. Devin has some great stuff on his channel. He did the best job breaking down what happened with the whole Alex Jones thing of anybody, I think, that I watched any pieces on. You know, he gives you the nuances. He doesn't sensationalize. You know, a lot of times when you hear about legal stories in the news from reporters, they have a tendency to like jump ahead a bunch of steps, and you know, on Legal you're not going to get that. So he's definitely one whose channel evolved and was more pop culture focused and has become more current events focused, but the pop culture stuff's there and it's fun if you just want a fun time, and if you want something that's a little more in-depth, that's there too. There's a couple of honorable mentions in this category. Our mortician I mentioned from Ask a Mortician, which really interesting video about dying fact, which people don't talk about. So I think that's kind of awesome. I also wanted to mention another lawyer here who has a wonderful channel, and both of them will have that. Now when it comes to like news, it's something that you can get a lot of on YouTube. There's a ton of content from all of the major news networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, blah, blah, blah. They all have a presence on YouTube, and that is one way that you can get current events. And I do consume some of that mainstream media content because I think that it's important to get lots of different sources when you get news. Places that I think are best to get news and on sort of just a regular daily basis on YouTube are TLDR and PBS. PBS doesn't have a ton of content, but they have reliable, trustworthy journalism. They are, I think, very even-handed, and you can watch them live or whenever's convenient for you, and I really like that. I didn't always watch daily news broadcasts before I got into watching them on YouTube, and they kind of got me into that habit by making it so easy and so accessible. So PBS NewsHour, A++. The other one that I mentioned, TLDR, is more of a YouTube presence. They have a global version and then several regional versions, and I find the context that they provide quite interesting, especially because they will cover things that I don't normally hear about with their global channel and their EU channel, because there's a lot that goes on in Europe I don't hear about since I don't speak any other languages besides English. So it's really interesting to be able to get information from a source that I probably would never have had any access to anything like that prior to YouTube. Oddly enough, another really great news channel on YouTube that I probably would have never watched without YouTube is 60 Minutes Australia. I don't know why it is that they have such quality content compared to a lot of other news magazines, but what they upload on YouTube is good, and I've watched quite a lot of their pieces, and I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, did you see that 60 Minutes Australia news piece? I'm like, you watched that too? So that's definitely one worth looking at, which is a little bit off the wall. And if you want something that's just straight, plain news, as you know, cut and dry as it can be, don't forget about the AP. You can subscribe to the AP and get the breaking news sort of the same way that a lot of the other news channels get it, through AP. I just want to throw in that the National Archives actually has a really great YouTube channel with a lot of cool vintage content. It's not very accessible. You have to kind of sift through a lot of stuff, but you can find some real gems in there. Also, a news channel that I really highly recommend that's sort of a more news magazine type channel is Retro Report. I particularly like the videos that they have. They're quite a few years old, that are about semi-recent history and are focused basically on things that were huge in the media and then kind of fell off the map and what happened next. So, you know, they have a video about what happened to Willie after Free Willy, what happened, you know, after Waco, what happened after 9/11. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways. And then their more recent videos, I think, have taken an interesting turn where they take recent past history from maybe the last 20 and 30 years and kind of say, this phenomenon we're seeing in the current day, this is where it started. So, awesome channel. Definitely worth a watch. Now, you might be thinking, here we are, 5 categories and all these channels mentioned, and I'm talking about people on YouTube, and I haven't yet mentioned the Green Brothers. Well, they're going to get their own category, and this is it. Now, obviously, most people are aware of the Vlogbrothers or some of their other projects that came afterwards. And obviously, they were very formative in what YouTube became with the projects that they created, like CrashCourse and their Vlogbrothers series. I am most compelled by their SciShow content. Both SciShow and SciShow Space, I think, are some of my favorite ones. When there's something in the news that's science related, you can usually depend on SciShow to give you more information and backstory about that and make it easier to understand. And I don't think you can really overstate the importance of that in a culture where scientific literacy is extremely dubious at best. So they're helping make it easier for people who may not be as scientifically literate as we would like to be able to understand nuanced scientific topics and scientific language. I think that's a really important topic that we don't talk about enough. So, you know, I like a lot of their products, but out of all of them, SciShow, SciShow Space, those are my favorites. Oh, and Journey to the Microcosmos is just so relaxing. Oh my gosh. Sort of along the same vein, there's also PBS Digital Studios, which is, you know, a sort of large content farm, but has a, you know, not questionable background. So I definitely recommend a lot of the different PBS channels, Eons and Terra and all of those. Great way to understand the world better. Our 7th category is going to be the scientists. Now, I have a degree in biology, so you know that I have a special place in my heart for scientists. I know scientists. I remember what it was like watching people, the grad students in the lab. Oh, man. Oh, those science things. So I have a lot of respect for somebody who's been through that rigmarole and come out the other side with a bunch of letters after their name. And one of the, I think, best YouTubers, period, is Mark Rober. The reason that I say that is he just has such a broad appeal, and he really has broken into the mainstream in a way that very few YouTubers have. Primarily because he's always on Jimmy Kimmel, I think. But, I mean, ask a kid. Ask a kid if they know who Mark Rober is, and they do, you know? So, and his content isn't childish. It can be simple, but, you know, a lot of adults don't understand engineering, and he makes it easy to understand engineering and physics concepts that a lot of people just wouldn't be able to comprehend. And he's not the only scientist on YouTube that does amazing stuff. You know, if you're interested in physics, there's Physics Girl. If you're interested in chemistry, there's NileRed and also Nile Blue. And I really recommend Veritasium, which can be a little bit dense at times, but is just off the wall in the topics of mathematics and physics and all sorts of interesting phenomenon. And same with SmarterEveryDay. Great, a bunch of, you know, the Gen Z version of Bill Nye, essentially. And they're so informative, and because they have a broad appeal, most of them, a lot of them have younger viewers, they're helping people become more interested in STEM careers, and in a lot of ways I think they're helping improve the world. So I definitely, when I get a chance to expose a kid that doesn't know Mark Rober to Mark Rober, I do it. And they, oh, you don't know Physics Girl, let's watch some Physics Girl. How about SmarterEveryDay? How about Be Smart? Let's do it, you know? If you're going to talk about kids in YouTube, well, you got to talk about snake discovery. Emily is the biggest reptile nerd you could ever imagine, and she runs around and has lovely antics with her mostly off-camera husband, Ed. I had seen some of her videos with her little alligator some time ago, but I didn't start watching until regularly. And I think what has been really interesting about that is my thoughts on environments have changed because they're so thoughtful in the enclosures that they keep and the enrichment that they offer to their animals. It makes you think about the environment that you keep your animals in and ultimately yourself in. And when you start seeing things in terms of, are you providing a biologically adequate environment and stimulation and diet to the animals that you have in your care, it definitely kind of opens your eye to see yourself more as a steward than an owner, the way that they do. And another really good channel for that is SerpaDesign. With that channel, Tanner is more, I think, focused on plant life, but he also has quite an impressive collection of fish and amphibians and reptiles and isopods. So I really love watching him nerd out about the animals and plants that he has in his care. But the main thing is that man is an artist. Lovely, lovely things that he creates. Can't recommend that channel enough. Now, if you want something that's a little more bombastic, there's the Ants Canada channel, which if your kiddos like insects or can handle insects, this is a great channel. The production values, the music, sound effects, storylines, everything is over the top. So you learn a little bit, but it's also really fun. And I'd like to mention a channel that focuses primarily on rescuing seals from like garbage entanglement. and it's weirdly fascinating. There's other types of channels like this with other animals, like cleaning off cows' hooves or turtles' shells or whatnot. If you like just watching animals get helped by humans, these channels are kind of nice to have on hand. It's not a bad thing to subscribe to. My ninth topic I'd like to discuss is self-improvement. Now, last summer, I was in such a bad place. I was still trying to work and deal with what was going on with me, get my surgery, then recover from my surgery once it was completed. And I was in a really dark place for the last few years. And one thing that I found that really helps me is positive self-talk. And so this channel, Reiki Healing Hope, Reiki Hope Healing, Reiki. This channel here has a wonderful practitioner of Reiki named Jess, who does a wonderful job of providing a nightly self-care routine, is what she calls it, and gives you a place to think positive thoughts, let go of negative thoughts and trauma, and work through and work on yourself internally. And whether or not that speaks to you, it's just kind of relaxing to listen to her. And so I definitely recommend her channel if you're stressed and you need something to help you, like, find your way through. As far as other channels of this nature, I definitely recommend these ones here. And I also wanted to point out that YouTube has a lot of wonderful tutorials for like self-massage, self-acupressure, you know, yoga routines that you can do of all levels. Like when I was on chemo, we did chair yoga and standing yoga because I couldn't get down on the floor. There's every difficulty level that you could possibly imagine. So if you're stuck at home like I am, they're a great resource. Or if you just don't have time to get to the gym and you want to be able to do something in your own home with just anywhere that you have YouTube, you can do that. So if you made it all the way to this part of the video, I'm going to give you a little treat. The last part of the video is just entertainment stuff. Since you may have picked up on the fact that I'm a bit of a drag fan, I wanted to start with drag queens. A lot of famous drag queens, whether they're Brew Girls or not, have really awesome YouTube channels with music videos, either to original songs or lip syncs. Some of them have excellent production values. Some of the songs are absolute bops. And I think I have to give special mention to Manila Luzon, who just keeps putting out awesome music video after awesome music video, high concept, but always really fun. So if you like fun and music and pop and color and concept and art, Manila Luzon, or any number of wonderful drag queens that are on YouTube. Sort of drag adjacent are YouTubers who don't paint their faces, but rather paint dolls. And all the doll repaint artists, my absolute favorite is HeXtian. Yes, HeXtian is how that's pronounced. That's the channel creator's first name, and it's just spelled that way on the channel. But the one thing I have to mention when I talk about HeXtian is the way that he lovingly sculpted Lizzo's body and didn't try to smooth out flaws, but rather included them because that's part of who she is. seeing him sculpt a body reminiscent of mine, it was amazing. And I don't know if he has any idea how important that was to me, and probably others like me as well. So that's something I had to mention. I mean, it's not like a normal feature of all of his videos, but A++ Christian for, you know, respecting Lizzo's body. So let's talk about music. One of my favorite channels, because I'm a Lin-Manuel Miranda fangirl, is Howard Ho. So I understand when you look at this content, you may say, not for me if you're not a Lin-Manuel Miranda fan. But actually the way that he pulls songs apart helps you look at music in a new way, and is something that can be applied outside of Hamilton or Encanto or anything like that. Another music channel that I think is worth mentioning is DJ Cumberbund, which he has the most off-the-wall mashups, and they're just fun. So check that out. I mean, who puts, you know, like Ozzy and Beyonce and Willie Nelson on the same song or something? I mean, he would do that, right? It's great. And then one of my favorite comedy YouTubers is Ryan George, who has a channel. It's just Ryan George, as well as some other channels. And I think he's funny. He's got good comedic timing. Nothing more exciting than that. So, we've made it. I got to the point where I had to start leaning on my cane because it's been a journey. But we made it through, nieces and nephews and nibblings. So, I am done lecturing at you for the day. Thank you, sweet baby Casey. It's like, what did I do? Alright. Well, I will leave you to yourself, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, my darlings. Take care. Bye.